Africa is feeding the whole world, yet most of its people are still suffering from hunger. Africa exports most of its agricultural products to external markets and at the end of the day import finished products from these very same markets. In fact, in 2017, Africa spent close to $63 billion in importing food, yet 60% of African land is still underutilized, yet is arable, possible for the production of agriculture and food. So this makes me think that the problem of hunger in Africa today is artificial and can be done away with if the political class decide to do the right thing. Let's take, for instance, coffee in Kenya. Coffee is farmed in Kenya by farmers under very difficult conditions sometimes. But then the raw coffee beans, which is of high quality, is exported directly to external markets without being produced locally and without value being added to it locally so that it can be consumed as a finished product. So there are a lot of underlying factors that make this the case. And this is what we need to talk about so that such things can change, so that Kenya can benefit from the coffee beans and the coffee farmers can benefit directly and in good remuneration for the effort they are putting in growing the coffee. So most of the problem is coming from the fact that there are colonial structures that are established in Kenya that ensure that the raw coffee produced, that is the coffee beans, is channeled directly to the external markets, for instance, in the UK. So this structure still exists today, and we need to change this so that things can change, because without changing these structures, the flow still remains the same. The farmers grow the coffee and the beans are taken by brokers directly from the farmers, paid a little amount of money, and the rest of it is exported at the benefit of a few individuals and external markets and companies. And what's funny is that at the end of the day, these same coffee beans of high quality are used to make finished products, finished coffee. For instance, Nescafe. And Kenya imports Nescafe back to the shelves and people consume them locally. Kenyans and other people within the Kenyan boundaries buy these products. So it is really difficult to understand why is it that the government cannot decide to change these structures, to build industries that process this coffee, roast them, and takes it through the whole value chain of production so that it can become a high value product and can be sold locally first, and so that the economy can grow by Kenyans consuming their own coffee and getting value of it, and then later being exported. I think this is because of the laziness of most of our politicians. They really don't want to do the work. They don't want to sit down and understand what the problem is. All they can do is say a lot of rhetorics that actually cannot change the economy. That is why President Ruto is talking of changing Kenya to be at the level of Singapore. This is unbelievably impossible based on what we have seen him able to do, because this cannot be achieved by empty rhetoric. This can only be achieved by doing actual work and by putting out structures that will ensure that this comes to see the light of day. So it is very simple, and perhaps Kenyans have to stand for themselves and continue to educate the others, to share information of what is really important. And I repeat, the most important thing, industries need to be put all around the areas where coffee is grown. So, for instance, in Kericho area, we should not only have structures that were set by the colonialists that were only to capture the seeds and nothing beyond that. So there's no infrastructure to continue through the whole process of the value chain of value addition of this agricultural product so that it can become more valuable. It can become sold at a higher and meaningful price so that the farmers, the local farmers can benefit, the Kenyan economy can benefit, and in turn, there can be also jobs created for Kenyan youth because that is very important. So this problem is our own undoing. It is high time we understood that we need to do out with these structures and put up industries in all those areas. Murang'a. There are so many areas in Kenya where coffee is grown. In fact, Kenya is number 19 in the world in terms of coffee output. And that means that Kenya should be able to get something out of it into their economy. So if you look at countries like South Korea in the 1970s, their GDP per capita was really going hand in hand with Kenyans, if not lower, before 1970. But after that, because they decided to industrialize, for them they decided to industrialize in different things like electronics, for instance, build industries to create electronics, to build cars, to build ships. Their economy bloomed and plummeted so high that currently it is incomparable to the economy of Kenya. And this demonstrates what can happen if a government decides to do the right thing. And currently South Korea is amongst some of the most influential countries in terms of the global economy. And that is because they decided to industrialize and ensure that they export high value products. And again, after industrialization, the first step is supposed to be that there should be domestication of the products so that other products of similar nature should not be accepted within the country for a given period of time, so that the Kenyan product, in this case the Kenyan coffee produced in Kenya, grown and produced in Kenya with a certain name, first is sold to Kenyans and within the Kenyan market until it becomes very competitive to the extent that it can be compared to similar products like Dormans, like Nescafe, like the Java, and all this. So after that is when it is possible to open up the markets, because this product is competitive to the regional markets, and then it is possible then now to open the markets for these other products and also to encourage export of these products. If this is done, then the coffee sector will highly impact the lives of Kenyans and will really bring back the value that it needs to bring.